I'm very happy that you took the time, Ali Ahmed, and that you're sitting here with me today and talking a little bit about you as a person, but also about you and your company and what you guys have in mind for the future. So, welcome.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
So, as we normally do, we would like to start a bit earlier. So, go as far back as you would like to. So, some people start with, "Oh, I saw an Iron Man movie." These are the younger folks. Other folks that are a bit older said, "Yeah, my father or my sibling or friend of mine, or I was interested very early on in mathematics and physics. So, this is how I got started in high school or university." So, yeah, please, maybe you can share a little bit about your background and your upbringing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been a founder for the last 13 years. And actually, when I was in high school, as you mentioned, I had this glamorous idea of being a founder. And,
Mm,
I had set targets for myself that by this age, I'll start my first company and so on. But I actually didn't start off in tech. So I did my MBA.
mhm,
And then graduating from MBA, I got into kind of the career path. I worked at GSK, the pharmaceutical company, as a new product development manager. And then I joined the kind of CPG, FMCG world, the consumer packaged goods world, where I worked at Unilever as a brand manager. So that was early in my career, but I'd always had this passion for technology and for tech. And, I really wanted to get into building tech startups. And so after Unilever, I went to the Gulf, worked for a while in the Gulf as a management consultant. But then I went to the UK to do another master's degree. So I got my second master's from Lancaster. I got onto a PhD program called the Highwire, which was cross-disciplinary between computing, management, and design.
mhm.
Um, but after about a week, I deferred that PhD and I realized that I do not want to become this lifelong academic. I'm more of a practical person. I want to start companies, and so I joined Groupon. I moved to London and I joined Groupon. It was called My City Deal, ran by the Samwar brothers, and then they
Mhm.
got acquired by Groupon. And there's no such thing as overnight success, but I think that was one of the closest examples of an overnight success. Literally overnight went from 30 people to 300.
Crazy.
And that experience for me was amazing because I got a firsthand view into how a high growth tech startup works, and it inspired me. I looked at, to their credit, the founders and the CEO at the time, Chris, incredibly hardworking people, but I realized that, hey, if they can do this, so can I, right? So it gave me that motivation to start my first company in 2011. It was called Lootbox. We started building video messaging technology. And then in 2015, I launched another startup called Dispatch, which at the time was the fastest growing on demand delivery service in the UK. We
Mm.
had about 1,000 dispatchers in our network.
And
We
so
grew
this
that
is,
business.
sorry to interrupt you, but so this is 10 years ago, right? Because this delivery thing just started a few years ago, like heavily. But to go back two seconds more, it's interesting that you said, I mean, first you said that you had the idea of becoming a founder very early on, and then you made yourself some marks. I would like to be a founder at this age and then do this and that. Plan is always good, but life comes in between. So I really like something that you said when you went into your first week of the PhD and then you decided this is not for me, right? It takes some guts to really having a PhD role and having this path laid in front of you and then deciding or really going into yourself and say, okay, this is not me. There's some people that are really interested in being in academia, but maybe not me. I'm a hands-on guy, as you said, and this is totally okay and this is great, right? Realizing this and not saying, okay, I need to stick with this because I made the plan and now I have to go through this hell because I will come stronger out of it. No, you said I am a person who would like to build something. So you said instead of because there's a lot of prestige that comes with a PhD title, right? So and then you say, no, I would like to build something. How do you have the guts to do this? This is something that I'm always asking because you said something else. If I can, if they can do it, I can do it, right? And I really like this attitude. Maybe you can tell me a little bit more about this.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I think honestly, I have a tremendous amount of respect for PhDs. It's not an easy task, dedicating years of your life to research. I think now after writing my treatise as well, I have a, further appreciation for what PhDs go through. But at the same token, I really, really believe that, after doing multiple degrees, I did 2 master's degrees, I did my bachelor's, I did it from multiple universities. I transferred out of one university, where my grades weren't that great. And then I went to a university where I did an accelerated course, graduated in half the time. And so I feel like you should always experiment and try things and see where you perform best, right? So some people are better at research and academia and spending years dedicating their life towards furthering their knowledge. And then some people are more practical, hands-on, and they want to just get their hands dirty, get started, and build something, right? And it's sometimes that it's both, right? So I have a ton of friends or PhDs who then start companies afterwards. But what I say to other people is, if they're going through the same thing and they ask for advice, is that find where your true passion is. Life is short. Follow your passion.
And somewhere I read, only people that made it can give this advice because it's easy. So very few made it, right? And so standing there and saying you should follow your passion, there's a lot of skill involved to make it. There's always a lot of luck and opportunities that you do need to create on your own to make it, right? There's a lot of grit, perseverance. There's the right network necessary. So it's a bunch of things that are necessary to really have success. And so follow the passion. It's just, I think it's honest to say that this is just one part of it. But if you have the guts to make your passion your living, then you do need to think about what is really necessary. What are all the puzzle pieces, right? So what have been the puzzle pieces for you to make yourself a success?
Yeah, I think for me, after leaving the PhD, I realized that I wanted to get into tech, and I had a few ideas of launching a startup, and at that time, I felt it's important to work at another startup to kind of build that experience before trying to strike out on my own. And there was a great opportunity at My City Deal, which became Groupon, and this was pre-IPO. And so it was a great time to kind of be at an early stage startup that was really growing and kind of learn the ins and outs of that. And again, like I said, it gave me the motivation to go and start my first company on the back of it. And to your point, when I said I advise, it's mostly to other startup founders. By no means do I believe that I've made it. I think a lot of founders, have gone through the struggle. I've seen a lot of failures, like a lot of other people, and hopefully some successes as well.
I really like this attitude because I think what most people missing to have the guts is the confidence and the support from others. So you can do this. I believe in you. Look, if they can do it, you can do it. And so this is the reason why I like to have people on my podcast that are sharing their story and sharing, look, these are the similarities that you can see between me and you. And if I can sitting here and say, I'm not a success by no means. I mean, we decide and we should define on our own, what does that mean, having success, right? Trying can be a success because the majority of people are not having the braveness, the opportunities, the resources to try it, right? So there's even the trying is separating you from 80% of people, 90% of people, I guess.
I think, yeah, that's critical. And it's a lot of people don't take the first step, the plunge, right? So when I meet young founders or people who want to become founders, usually they're like, I'm not ready, right? And what I tell them is, hey, just if you have a great idea and you've validated it, you talk to people, and you want to do this, then take the plunge, right? Literally just go incorporate a company, right? Spend $500, incorporate a company. That will then put pressure on you that this is now real. I have to do it. A lot of people advise founders to do a side hustle. In my experience, after doing 4 or 5 startups, right, side hustles don't work. You need to commit fully. You need to go all in, and that's usually what leads to success.
You said it so naturally, so it's part of your DNA now, but actually there were 2 very crucial things that you just went over through so seamlessly, was trying to get validation, right? Trying to see if there's a fit. you said it differently, but actually what you're trying to say is it's not just do something, trying to get some feedback, trying to get some validation, right? First, because there is nothing worse than spending time, energy, money on things that where there is no market, there is no need for, right? I really like that you said it so easily because for you it seems like who did a few of these companies or startups, this is basic. It's one-on-one, 101, right? So I really like this. But maybe
Yeah,
you can say a little bit more about this because most, especially tech founders who really believe my idea is so cool and my academic research gave out this result that should blow everyone away. Maybe you can say something about this.
yeah, it's a really interesting point, and I look back at my early startup attempts and the products that we built, and I really believe that it's better to have an idea that people either love or hate. It's actually better to have an idea that people hate than it is to have them be indifferent. Like
Mm.
some of my early products, we built a photo sharing app, which was like a messaging slash photo sharing. With every message you send, it would take a selfie. I could not even convince my friends to use the app. Like they were so indifferent to it, right? And so I think that's much more important is to validate and to see if people love this or hate it. And obviously, you want people that love it, but at the same token, if they hate it, it means that you're solving a problem for them. You're just not solving it well enough. So tweak it,
Mm.
work on it, and then have them
Mm.
love it. So a lot of people say this, and I think a lot of incubators and accelerators kind of advise make something people want. That's sort of their strap line, and that's incredibly true.
I just today I had a discussion with a few members of my team. I'm in the growth department, and we were talking about how to approach customers, how to approach customers and partners. And so you said you either hate it or love it, right? And I really like the hated part because you need to come up with ideas that because you hate it, right? So the you are how do you say this in English? You're trying to stay away from it because you hate it. So what can you come up with to get this obstacle out of your way? So this is the pay. This is because the majority of people cannot come up with a solution, cannot come up. So there's two ways. Either there is none, right? Or it's so difficult that if you'll be able to do it, then there is a new market where you have almost no competition, right? So I think it is valid to try it, but as you said, you do need to not only try it, you do need to try it in a good way, trying to find paying customers first. So I think this is a statement that is true for tech, non-tech, doesn't matter. I think if you can really find paying customers first, that is a validation that goes beyond VC money.
Absolutely. And that's the most critical. Solve a problem and make sure that your solution, is a good solution for that problem. So yeah, I think that's the kind of ethos I've had with every startup I've done, other than the first few where everyone was indifferent to it. But you have to learn that the hard way as well. So just by doing things, you start learning what works and what doesn't work.
And why did you want to go into tech? This is something that is because some people have the majority of people who are interested in tech very early on, right? So I use my brother as an example. He belongs to those kind of people who disassembled the toaster when they were 6 or 7, right? So they stick to this kind of career, and he's working for BMW and is a trained mechanic. So he stuck to that, and that became his profession. But what did intrigue you to? I don't have a tech background, but this is so interesting for me. I would like to go into it. And what made you? Because there's a big barrier, right? There's degrees, there's requirements. Sometimes you do need to have licenses, so you can be or you are able to you're allowed to work with certain things. So what happened with you?
Yeah, I think, early days of college, I don't have a technical background, but I am quite technical, right? So I used to spend time tinkering, and when all my friends in college were pursuing their computer science degrees, I was coding up websites, right? And this is with
Mm.
no formal training, no background in how to do that, just kind of self-taught and teaching myself how to do that. I created a Netflix clone. This was very early. This was, I think, during the early days of, I want to say 2004, 2005, somewhere around there, 2003, 2004.
This
And
is this is
so
pre YouTube, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think YouTube was 2005, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. So
Mm-hmm.
this was pre-YouTube. I created the website. I had little, thumbnails of every movie. You could click on it. It would open up the information around it. There was the final step of streaming it was what I was working on. But this is just something I was tinkering on during college days. And so I think from an early age, I've always wanted to get into tech, and I think for me, I've always been a huge sci-fi nerd and sci-fi fan. I love robotics from childhood. I've always dreamt of a future of robots working in your home alongside you, living beside you, and so that kind of sparked this fascination with technology. And it took me a while to get to robotics, to kind of start building robotics startup. But I see that all as a journey on a similar path.
Awesome. I mean, because robotics is meant to be one of the hardest tech because it it combines so many different say so different not degrees but different kind of skill sets that you need, right? You were mentioning computer science, but there is also the mechanical parts of the hardware part of it, and so it's very multi. I think the word is missing here. Multi. Um,
Multidisciplinary,
yeah,
multi.
thanks.
Yeah.
I think that was the word I was looking for. And so a lot of younger folks really struggling with which path should I take, right? You were mentioning earlier that you follow your passion, and I think it's hard when there's such a high pressure with young people that what can I learn today that will ensure that I will have a job in 5 years, right? And
Mhm.
especially when nowadays people have, I think, different opinions about this with AI coming into the game. I think 5 years, 10 years ago, no one was really thinking about, okay, someone is taking away my job. But there's always these kind of peaks, right? So there's a peak need, and then with a little bit of time delay, you get students because the industry is telling them we need you, we need you, we need you, and then you have an oversupply of or oversupply and endless demand.
Cyclical, yeah.
So yeah, so this so I think this is definitely something that plays a role in people making decisions, but sticking long enough with the topic, passion does need to play a point, right? Because otherwise not having really the and I experienced this I experienced this myself. Never really was interested in mechanical engineering, but I thought, okay, from all the options that I can see, this is definitely a part where I can find good opportunities worldwide, right? And so interesting that you say this. Coming back to today, maybe you can tell me a little bit about how you came into. You said that you're starting getting into robotics or more interested in. You talked about a few earlier startups that you've been part of or that you built. Maybe we can come to something that plays a bigger role in your life today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I left England, I moved to the US in 2017. I had already started working on automation, trying to solve the biggest problem with delivery. On-demand delivery, especially for groceries, is broken, right? It just doesn't work. It's incredibly expensive for consumers, and retailers lose money on every order. So I was looking into automation either through self-driving robots, and I had worked with one of my co-founders, Ahmed. We used to work together at Unilever 13, 14 years ago. He
Mm.
was ice cream. And I remember when I got to the US, I got back in touch with him and he recalled that idea. When we were at Unilever, we had this idea. He had come up with this idea and we'd kind of worked out a business plan, and we never did anything with it. But he wanted to recreate the ice cream van for everything in retail and have it be on demand. And his
Mm.
idea was you could literally just pick up the phone. This is predates smartphones, it predates the App Store. You literally pick up a phone and say, send the store to me. And the grocery store would show up and you would go out, grab whatever you wanted, and you'd shop at your doorstep physically. So when I told him about my experiences in on-demand delivery and how I felt it wouldn't work without automation and robotics, he connected those two ideas. And he said, by creating a self-driving store that can be hailed on demand, we can not only solve the problems with on-demand delivery, but we can create a new channel for retailers. So that's how Robomart was born. I'm gonna change my background so you can
Mm-hmm.
see what the Robomart looks like. We built the world's first self-driving store. And what you see behind you, we call it Gala.
Which year are we talking about?
This debuted at CES 2018, and we basically unveiled, the concept of a self-driving store to the world. And it kind of went viral at CES. We were fortunate to get a lot of coverage. And then 6 months later, we built the first full-size version of the Robomart. And it is a store that can be hailed on demand. Consumers can tap one button to hail it, just like an Uber or a Lyft. They don't have to create an order beforehand, like delivery. They just hail it. So it's closer to a ride-hailing experience than it is to on-demand delivery. And when it arrives, they get to shop checkout free. So we built an auto checkout system. We call it auto checkout that tracks every product that comes out of the Robomart in real time. So the consumer just grabs what they want and they walk away, and within 30 seconds, they get a receipt.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the idea.
This is so, I mean, this is so interesting because I have so many questions, and maybe the audience is interested in those questions as well. Because this is physical, right? A lot of people that get into robotics and automation these days, there's a lot of software involved, because software is easier scalable, and you actually just need this laptop here and internet connection so you can get into robotics, right? So, but what you're building, you do need to have hardware. That means there need to be money involved. And so because a lot of startups, they can start with their manpower, so to speak. So this is 2018. You have the idea, but you do need money to actually come up with a car that looks like that, because it looks fancy as hell, right? And then there's the supply chain, which is always a topic. But this looks like a uniquely designed car for your idea. How big was the founder team? How was the early stages? Did you raise any money? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. So Ahmed, my co-founder, who actually used to work with me at Unilever, who had the original idea, he's chief strategy officer. His background is in ice cream retail and fintech financial services. And the two of us went to CES with a small model, and we had no idea how we're going to build it. Right? As I said, I'm kind of self-taught, but I really am not technical. We didn't know how we're going to build it, but we just went and told the world that in 6 months we're going to build the world's first self-driving store. And the model we built with a partner in Hollister, this amazing guy, Mike Corbin. We discovered him. He held, I don't know if he still holds that or not, but he held the land speed record for the fastest electric motorcycle. He must be in his late 80s now, but really amazing guy. And he said, I'm going to build you a small model. It's about the size of a table, 4 feet, and it's going to turn heads. You take it to CES. We put all our money, literally, every last dollar into building that model. We didn't know if it's going to pay off or not, but it paid off in a massive way.
And this is 2000. This is 2018.
2018. So 2017, end of 2017, when we built the model, and January of 2018, we took it to CES. And at the show, we closed 3 investors, and we found our third co-founder, Tigran, whose background is in self-driving automation. He built a ton of warehouse robots in his previous startup called RoboCV. And yeah, he discovered us through CES, decided to go all in and join us to co-found the company. So, that's how we kind of got our start. But yeah. Sorry.
I have too many questions. So there's so the CES is an exhibition, is a fair, right?
It is, yeah. It's I'd say the biggest tech conference in the world. Something like 500,000, maybe 600,000 people attend. It over the years has become more of an auto show, so there's a lot of automotive companies there, but it at its heart is a tech conference.
And if I'm not mistaken, it not takes place every time at the same place, correct?
It's in Vegas at the Sands. I'm forgetting the exact the Sands Convention Center and the hotel next to it. I'm forgetting the name. But it the Venetian. It happens at the Venetian in Vegas every January. I think first week of January.
So, and how did you guys? Because this is what I see a lot of founders struggling with, and I just talked the other day with someone else. These are, I mean, you said that you're not like a deep tech founder who's coming out of academia and doesn't have not too much experience with the industry, with a so-called real life or reality. So I do think this helps definitely when it comes to organizing these kind of things, like going to a fair, marketing, sales. These are always just parts of skill sets that deep tech founders are missing, especially people in robotic, AI, automation. So you guys were clever enough to come up with the idea, okay, we do need money, and there's a good place where we can go, where we can show our, let's say, prototype, our MVP, and then we can attract people trying to raise money so we can actually build this. So is that how it went?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I tell all the startups that I advise the same thing, like especially in the robotics field, CES is incredibly valuable and critical, right? So usually it's more valuable in the Eureka Park, which is the startup section of CES. Um, if you do in the main hall exhibit, you're kind of drowned out by Samsung and Apple. And I don't think Apple attends, but all the big tech companies that are there. But in Eureka Park, you have investors that are canvassing the floor looking for the next big startup, right? And so we use that as a catalyst, and I recommend everyone to do that in the robotic space, is use that as a deadline to build your first either model or prototype and take it to CES. And try to leverage as many pitching events and competitions and networking events at the show over the 3-4 days that it takes place over as possible.
And how was the reception? You said that you closed 3 investors, but how was it for you to, maybe you can take us with this experience. So how was it going there, having a booth, seeing all the competition, asking yourself, is this big enough? Is this valid enough? Is this functional enough? Is this convincing enough? What do I need to tell? How do I need to tell the story so I can actually get some people? Because you said we put our last money into it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can recall what happened back then.
It's a really fun story. So we like most startups in the earliest stages, we're always struggling for capital. We had closed one angel investor who gave us enough money to build that model. That's it. And when we went to CES, we literally had nothing in the bank accounts. We didn't have enough money to pay for internet or carpeting in our booth. And CES is not free, right? So you have to pay for Eureka Park, but it's really worth the investment. What we ended up seeing, and this is really fun, right? We had a backdrop and we had the model. And so we set up a table, put the model on it, put like a curtain over it, and put the backdrop. And we had no internet. We were like, we'll just wing it. We'll try to connect to Wi-Fi at the day of the show and see how we can demo the app. And we had no carpeting, so it kind of looked really sketchy. But when we arrived the next day, the organizers thought that they had made a mistake. They looked at this model. They said, wow, this model looks pretty impressive. The backdrop looks pretty nice. It must have been a mistake on our end. So there was carpeting, there was internet in our booth, everything. So we really lucked out. And it was sort of roll of the dice, right? Like you're like, okay, should we spend all our last money on building this model? It seemed kind of excessive and glamorous, and we were kind of double-minded, but it really paid off. And I think that's, as a founder, what you have to do in the earliest stages is just take these risks and step by step, keep moving towards your target.
So this is 6 years ago now, right? So, well, yeah, 6-7 years ago. What happened since then? So I can see a car in the background, but where are you guys situated? How are you guys operating? Are you on a break-even point? Are you still depending on investors? Maybe you can share a little bit insights.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have built the first gen Robomarts. So we built 4 of them. We deployed them in pilots in West Hollywood. So what I should say is that we're not a B2C or a marketplace, right? So we are a pure B2B platform for retailers to deploy their own stores. So they get their entire branding on the Robomart, they pay us a fee for the Robomart, and they stock it with their products and they sell their products. We've built the entire auto checkout to work for them, and we've built the entire platform that works for them. We've signed now 5 customers. We have 8 contracts with those 5 customers for 100 Robomarts that have already been contracted. And we just went live, not this Sunday, but the Sunday before, in our new market of Baltimore with our first, I'd say, major customer, Mars. So they're deploying the Snickers ice cream Robomarts here in Baltimore. And, we're really excited about that. And next year, we will start introducing our driverless robomarts into operation.
So at the moment, it's not driverless. At the moment, there is someone driving the car.
Correct. It's the first gen robomarts, but we've built the first gen robomarts. They still gather the data. They still provide consumers the exact same fully automated experience. So the windows are tinted, the windshield's tinted. You don't see a driver, you don't interact with the driver. So the experience for the consumer is identical on one of our driverless robomarts or the first gen robomarts.
This is thanks for the insight. This is very, very interesting. And so you said you started in West Hollywood, you said?
That was the first pilots that we ran were in West Hollywood. Response was phenomenal, right? Like our first retail partner, they deployed pharmacy and snacks, and snacks was by far the hit. We saw like they saw 90% repeat buyers from the consumer side. 90%. That means that once someone hailed it for the first time, they were hooked. And I believe that the 10% that didn't hail it again were probably journalists.
What I think now, I imagine myself being on a Friday evening, Saturday evening, and I think, oh, dude, I would really like to have some chips or some chocolate, and because you said snacks, right? And so for sure, I can go online. I just moved to this place, which is south of Stuttgart, but I'm coming from Berlin, and we do have a high competition, or we used to have a high competition when it comes to immediate delivery, grocery delivery. And it is really nice to standing up at 7 o'clock in the morning, go to your fridge, and then you see, shit, I don't have eggs, there's milk missing. And then you just type in, you're just using your tablet, and then because everything is saved, you're just typing in, and like 10-15 minutes later, there's some drivers coming with a bicycle and delivering to your doorstep. So I do miss this kind of service, even though I do know this is always the majority of the back of drivers, right? And there was always some discussions about how do they treat and pay the drivers. But now myself imagine on a Friday, Saturday evening, I would like to eat something and not looking on a display versus there's a car standing in front of me and I can open the doors and then I see like this candy shop which is in front of me, and now I can grab everything. I don't see myself really, I'm just picking one part, just one M&M's package here. I do see myself robbing that store, right? Interesting concept. And you said Baltimore now is the first fleet where you guys coming up with a few more cars, right? How did that happen?
Right. These are the first ice cream Robomarts in Baltimore. So the Snickers ice cream Robomart carries all of Mars products: Dove, Snickers bars, Twix bars, M&M sandwiches, and a few others like Kind bars.
And you said that you just launched 2 weeks ago?
Yes, yeah, correct. So the app went live 2 Sundays ago.
But you said that you already have a few contracts with other customers, right?
We do, yeah. So we've already contracted 100 Robomarts that we will start delivering from end of this year, early next year. And then our first driverless Robomart pilot will take place next year as well.
And because now the customer is deploying in Baltimore, where are you guys situated?
So we just opened up our East Coast headquarters. We have our West Coast headquarters in LA, where we were for the last 5 years. Prior to that, we were in San Francisco Bay Area. I tell all startups, when you're starting out, that's where you need to be. But now we need to be where our customers are. So Mars is based on the East Coast. And so, it made sense for us to come to where they are. They're not a traditional retailer, so people get confused. They're like, are you the retailer? Are they? But we are the platform, and we basically allow anyone to deploy their own stores. They don't have to be retailer, but they have to have their own inventory that they retail through our platform.
When we're now coming to the more, because this is a commercial part, when we're coming now to the more technical part of it, how big is the team, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, we're 7 full-time, and then we have several part-time employees as well.
Because now if you're getting into the technical parts of it, and I don't know how much collaboration you do with other companies, because there's plenty of companies that are trying to become successful in driverless cars or driverless vehicles. So how is it for you two now? Because now we're getting really into deep tech, right? So how were your first steps? Because you said that in the early beginning of the concept, this was key element of it, right? You're now in the intermediate step of it, understood, but now getting to the next part of it. This is a very crucial time for you guys, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think like with Gala, our first driverless prototype, we built it from scratch. We literally stripped down a vehicle to its chassis. We built the entire vehicle on top of it, and we drove it, completely autonomously. So it drove itself, and we did all that with just the three founders and a very small team. And we had a really good partner that we worked with who has a stake in the company as well, and they do all the manufacturing of Robomarts in the Bay Area. So with that, we then realized that we don't need to be an AV company, right? We don't want to raise billions and have thousands of people building, the entire driving software. There are enough companies that are focused on that segment and that will, really perfect that tech. And what we want to do is partner with them on this new channel that we've created for retailers, right? So we see ourselves first and foremost as a store hailing company. We've built this new way to shop called store hailing. Tap a button, hail a store, and we're giving this platform to retailers. And we're building, we have an ecosystem called ARC, the Autonomous Retail Collective, in which we've already announced publicly some of our partners on the AV side, and we're continuously having other conversations. We'll be announcing more partners in the coming days. But that's how we see our business model. There's still a lot. It's not a plug and play. It's not as easy as, hey, you can just take driving software, AV driving software, and just plug it into any vehicle. It's not that easy. It's a lot more complicated. We need to have a certain amount of knowledge and technical know-how to be able to integrate their systems into a by-wire vehicle that has been converted, gets access to CAN bus, is able to control that vehicle. But we figured out that that's the better approach.
I think it does make sense, right? If you would come from the other side, you most likely wouldn't have so much experience in the retail part or in the commercial part, right? Because you're so focused on the tech. And you said, or how I understand you, is that this is a key element of my business, but that doesn't mean necessarily that I do need to build it on my own, right? There's other parts that I can just integrate, I can collaborate, I can work together with the right companies that are building this kind of things and re-leveraging this existing or upcoming technology, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a few companies that are really, I mean, the experience breaks down on the retail side, right? Like they haven't been able to figure out how to do store hailing. They're trying to do mobile stores that can come to you, but then they send out an alert. And then if you're in that time period, then they'll send it. Like there's an ice cream truck company that does that. There's a services company in the Bay Area that does that. But that's what we realized, is that building this store hailing platform, we, by the way, own the patent for store hailing. We also own the patent for self-driving stores. But what we realized is that by building an auto checkout system that is seamless for consumers, literally cannot have a better experience than tapping a button, 6 minutes, it's outside, you go outside, grab what you want, walk away. It's almost like an Amazon Go on wheels that comes to you on demand.
I think the part that you were just mentioning, how easy and effortless it is, this is one of the key elements that is driving up the adoption, right? I say this very often because I heard it somewhere and I found it so convincing. Disruption comes from adoption, and if it's a hassle, I stop using it just because it's a hassle, and not because I don't like the result, not because I don't like the product. It's just I don't like to deal with the pain, right? And if you say it's 6 minutes, 6 minutes, awesome. I think if 6 minutes is sustainable in a big city. I mean, at the moment, I think we are not there yet. In Berlin, I think they open up enough stores so they can more or less come with 15 minutes around the corner. But there's, like I said, a lot of manual labor involved, heavily involved. And
I want to talk about that a little bit, right? So all these quick commerce companies talk about 15-minute delivery, even 12-minute delivery. They only talk about drive time. So inherently, store hailing will always be 3 to 5 times faster than the fastest quick commerce or on-demand delivery service that exists today. And the reason for that is that there's no order creation. So consumers don't have to create a basket. So they save 15, 20, 30 minutes on that. Then there's no order packing process. There's no order pickup process. So by cutting out those 3 steps, we fundamentally are always faster than on-demand delivery. During our WeHo pilots, across the entire pilot period, it was like almost 7 months. The average time across all orders was 9 minutes.
Okay, I do have to say that everyone who is listening and who is interested in becoming a founder, listen to this man. The way he sells is awesome. So I do know that you know your pitch inside out. This was so effortless. I really enjoy that you are passionate about using technology for the ideas that you have. I would be interested in, you said this earlier that you don't believe in side hustles. You do believe in go all in. Now that you're all in now for 6 years, 7 years in Robomart, it can be very tempting to do other things that is related to robots, right? And now that you have a little bit of experience how to work together with robot companies, maybe you can tell me a little bit about what might be coming in the future. Are you sticking with this idea and trying to make this idea big, so focus? Or do you think it is very tempting at the moment where some companies are raising billions with some concepts without any paying customer, without any proof that that you're able to deploy this on a larger scale? So how do you evaluate the AI robotic hype that we are in the moment at the moment?
It's a great point. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like, when you are 6 7 years into something, people start thinking, hey, should I explore something else? The reality is that when we got into this, we realized that we're creating a new category, right? This ability to hail a store, it will be the next retail channel after e-commerce, right? And in 30 years, there's never really been a new way to buy goods. Maybe you could argue buying it on Instagram or something, but to be honest, that's still e-commerce, right? This store hailing is the first new retail channel in 30 years. And to me, that's something that's so exciting that I want to dedicate the next 2, 3, 4 decades of my life to, my entire life to this, right? And so that's the mindset that I had when I got into this. And more recently, when I was writing my treatise, which hopefully we'll talk about a little bit, I classified all robots, past, present, and future. And I created a taxonomy for, first of all, I defined what a robot is, which is a very tough thing to define. But then I created this taxonomy. And while doing that, I actually thought about the commercial aspect and the business model of every single robot type, from your kind of androids, the humanoid robots that people like to call, all the way to drones, to robot types that we haven't even considered. I explored and I realized that in almost all cases, robots, as amazing as they are, they only save money. Robomart is one of the few robot ideas and companies and business models that not only saves money, but generates additional money. So when you look at the spectrum of robots, that really reaffirms my faith and belief that I want to have millions of Robomarts in the next 10, 20, 30 years. I believe personally that they're going to be close to 10 billion androids in the next 2 decades. We obviously won't have as many Robomarts as androids, but if we're able to scale this up, and not just us, other companies as well that will build self-driving stores that can be hailed in different cities across the world, that to me is incredibly exciting and something that I have a long-term vision on, right? And last thing I'll say on this is that I take a cue from Jensen Huang and NVIDIA. When they started, they had this long-term vision of building chips for everything, right? Including AI and robotics. And it took them 20 years to actually get to a stage where now, that category is really blowing up for them, right? They were focused on gaming and other categories for a very long time. In the background, they were doing self-driving. Not a lot of people knew about that, but they were big in that space. But it took them that long. And similarly, I feel like we need to have, as founders, a very long-term ambition and vision, and we need to find ways to convince ourselves to see it through.
As we're coming towards the end, you said there was something you would like to talk about. So take advantage of that.
Absolutely, yeah. So you were talking about 6 years in, what are you doing? I am actually publishing a book, a treatise on robotics. It's called Sistema Robotica. It'll be published this week as a open access public work. And next week on August 16th, it'll be published as a paperback. And so the idea with Sistema Robotica actually came from about 6 years ago, the actual picture you see behind you was in Dubai, and we had flown Robomart to Dubai. And at this show, right next to us was Sophia the robot. If you're familiar,
Mm-hmm.
Sophia the robot has the synthetic skin, and my co-founders and a few other roboticists and I were debating about this. They were calling Sophia humanoid, and I didn't like that term. I said, I prefer android to humanoid. But even then, there needs to be a classification. You look at robots um, Atlas, right, or Figure, or Digit, and these are mechanical robots that have this countenance and appearance like a human, but they look very different to Sophia or to the DK robots, the
Mm-hmm.
Geminids. And I realized that we need to have a classification structure that differentiates them. And so that spurred the idea. And in the treatise, I first define what a robot is, compare it to certain things like artificial intelligence software, compared to machines, compared to humans, and compared to cyborgs, so that we can tease out the distinctions. Then in the second section, I created this taxonomy for all robots, past, present, and future. So there's 6 major types, and all robots will fall within those 6 major types. Even robots that don't exist today, like Megatech, like a planetoid, which is a robot the size of a planet. And then the final section is on the future of non-human superintelligences. So it discusses what superintelligence looks like, and it also defines sentience. And it's different to how most people define sentience. So that's why I implore people to go read the treatise. And then finally, it has a test for sentience, which I think is critical for us as we get into this era of automation and robotics, to be able to understand what it actually means if a robot is sentient, and how do we test for that.
I'm very curious about the reception, because I do know for a fact that a lot of people that are coming out of academia, that are coming out of this robotic or deep tech niche, are very concerned about non-technical people explaining technical terms or technical subjects. So I'm very curious to see how this will be, how will be the reception within the, let's say, industry. And but I'm happy that you say, for me, I mean, I'm not here to looking at any barriers or any justification or any allowance, right? So any yes from anybody, if I can do this or if I cannot do this. I think as a founder, you do need to have this attitude, and sometimes you can become very successful and people love the idea, and very often, more often than not, you do get some rejections, or you get no's, or you get I don't like this, I don't think this will work. So I'm happy that you're giving it a try, even though this is not your, let's say, academical expertise. But you said, why should I listen to anybody? I can do whatever I want to, right? Whatever I stick my mind to it, I can achieve. So I'm happy that you're taking the leap, and I hope that you will be just as successful with your book that you are with Robomart.
I appreciate that, Ilir. And I'll just say one thing to that point. My co-founder and I were talking about the exact same thing. And he said, the thing you have to remember is that you have practical hands-on experience in building robots. And
Mm-hmm.
that gives you an insight that a lot of people in academia might not have. And again, not to compare myself to them, I feel like I bring a certain insight to the treatise that expands on, practical deployment of a robot. The first time Gala drove autonomously, I was standing there with the emergency stop button, and it really gave me this level of insight into a future of robots that will be making decisions autonomously, that will be living, coexisting with us in society. How do we think about that? How do we define the roles in society? How do we think about superintelligence? How do we think about sentience? And how do we actually classify and define robots? So hopefully it'll be well received. But even if it's not, like I said, I would much rather it be loved and hated than it be indifferent.
I really love this, because I think there's a German song that says, or maybe this is not a German song, but love me or hate me, but think about me, right? I think you need to have some sort of ego to really make it through, to get a thick skin, to go against all the no's, and although all the it will not work, to become successful. So the grind, so that having the grit. I really appreciate that you took the time talking to me and explaining where you're coming from, what you're doing, and what you will be doing. And I think you will be definitely an inspiration for people who are listening and can reading between the lines, and can hearing the important things that you were sharing from your journey. So thanks again for giving me insights in Ali, Ahmed.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be on here. Thank you.
Take care and talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye bye.